My next guest is Rob Owen. For over 20 years as a school principal, educator, and author and coach, Rob has seen the deep impact that stress and burnout have on teachers. After a life-changing car accident at 17, Rob found healing through Tai Chi and Qigong, practices that became central to both his personal and professional life. Now he shares these mindful practices through Move to Focus, helping educators and students, especially those with ADHD and anxiety, find calm focus and emotional balance in the classroom and beyond. Well, welcome to the podcast, Rob.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Tell me about a time when you were in the trenches and managed to crawl out.
Well, uh, well, there's been a lot of times actually, but let me think of one. I would say, in the context of the classroom, I'd say around 3 or 4 years ago, I just gotten a job at a wonderful school that emphasizes teaching children with neurodiversity. So, children with ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, all the above. And I kind of came in as the veteran teacher, the teacher with the 20 plus years. And there was a lot of new teachers in the division.
Hmm.
And it just so happened that we had a group of 10 boys with about five with hyperactive ADHD.
Hmm.
And there were a couple others that had other kind of neurodiversities. Um, but this class was known to be, well, a little bit more complex, one would say, with
Hmm.
the social dynamics and the ability to stay focused during class. There was impulse issues, emotional dysregulation, all of all of the above. So get to class the first day and I saw what everyone was talking about. Okay, Rob, this class may be difficult. And, you know, it wasn't but maybe a couple days later, I thought to myself, the standard kind of classroom management kind of ways of doing things wasn't really working. So I
Hmm.
thought, well, why not just pull from my Tai Chi and Qigong background and take them outside?
Hmm.
So I began taking them outside in the morning. And I would line them up and say, "Okay, guys, we're gonna move around a little bit." And so I taught them a few moves, and attaching their breath to the movements. And slowly they got used to doing that every morning. And it wasn't but maybe about 2 weeks later, things started changing around. Like the kids wanted to go outside. The
Hmm.
kids wanted to do these repetitive movements with breath because they knew inside, they were in eighth grade, they kind of knew that they were dysregulated, and now they had a tool to
Hmm.
kind of work with that dysregulation. Um, and lo and behold, some teachers started to watch this happen, and so they kind of followed along too. So what was cool about it is, I guess you could say I was down in the trenches for, a couple weeks trying to figure out what I'm going to do with this awesome group of boys that just need a little support in the way of focus and impulsivity. And the way I pulled myself out was just grabbing from my own practice that I have done for many, many years and started to implement it in the classroom. And that class ended up to be awesome. We ended up doing it all through the rest of the year, and I ended up teaching teachers about the Tai Chi and the Qigong as well.
Hmm. So let's back up a little bit and tell me how kind of leading up to this position, using just Tai Chi and Qigong as an educator in your career prior to this experience. You said you'd been teaching for 20 plus years when you were teaching this particular classroom. So what did you do prior to this work, and how did you use these practices in those roles?
Well, I've been an educator for, 23 years now, and
Hmm.
I've studied Tai Chi, Qigong, and Shaolin Kung Fu for since I was about 26.
Okay.
And so both practices over about 20 years. And I've trained with multiple people, and as I've gotten a little bit older, I started to slow my practice down and bring it into the classroom. And I had been doing that for years, honestly, before mindfulness was a thing.
Okay.
I would say 2001, 2002.
Hmm.
I was, already a practicing martial artist. And so it was common for me to do slow movements to kind of wake up in the day or sitting meditation, sitting mindfulness. And I used to infuse these in the class with when I taught youngers from third grade,
Hmm.
fourth grade, fifth grade. And it was just a common practice where we would do, 30 seconds of sitting and breathing exercises, just gentle breathing and focus before we'd start our reading time. So I'd done it before, and then a few years later, I started teaching kids Kung Fu. And
Mm-hmm.
so after school, I'd offer a kids Kung Fu class. And so I'd always infuse it into the classroom because, after work, I would go and I would train on my own. Um, and then just recently, yeah, I started move to focus to kind of create an actual system and a formulistic, if I want to use that word, way to implement these movements and practices into the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you've now started the company Move to Focus. Why did you decide to start the company? And also, what does it offer?
Yeah, I decided to start it because I've been doing it for years, like I was just
Mm-hmm.
saying, and so I decided to kind of make it um, kind of choose the best of the best exercises and practices and put them all in one place.
Mm-hmm.
I had, I'm an on the fly kind of teacher, like many of us teachers out there, and I get there and I do what's needed.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the child needs, I differentiate accordingly. But it seemed there was a theme of movements and activities that I could offer and implement in the classroom. Um, and so I said to myself, well, what could I do that I could help offer this to other teachers? And I had started another business before, and I have another friend who does a thing called Ninjas in Nature. And so I'm like, well, why don't I just start a business around this and just see if I can, spread the mission and help other teachers out. So basically, what I have to offer is I have one-to-one coaching I do for teachers
Mm-hmm.
that need, immediate kind of help with classroom support, preventative measures in the classroom, setting up the classroom for the year for newer teachers. I offer them their own like kind of morning practice, so they have a morning meditative practice that they can learn to relax and do, be more balanced. And then I offer small group classes where I teach how to implement these movements into the classroom. And then in I think it's December, I've decided that there's going to be a free 1 hour course
Mm-hmm.
that I'll be offering just through my website, movetofocus.com. And in that 1 hour course, I'm putting it together right now. It's kind of just the essentials of it, and then in the new year, I have a 3 hour course that teachers can purchase. And
Mm-hmm.
from then on out, it's just all about just spreading the word and supporting other teachers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, do you also go to schools for their staff training, or is it often, like you said, with small groups or one-on-one teachers?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm working on all of that right now. I have one-on-one and I have two teen classes. So I actually do both. So I have the teachers that I'll show some movements to. But then at the same time, I have a class I'm teaching, two different teen classes I'm teaching after school. So I would say a few faculty and a lot of teens that really need development, and then parents, of course, are really interested in getting their teens in. So it's funny because I start something that's um, based towards faculty. And for some public systems, it's harder to get a system in. Private
Mm-hmm.
schools, it's a little bit easier to get, um, another program in the school. But when
Mm-hmm.
parents hear about it, parents will contact me and say, "Hey, will you work with my child? Will you work with my child?" So it started to become a little bit more working with teens at the moment. And then I'm also working with adults to kind of because they find interest in it as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, for those who are not aware or have not practiced Tai Chi and Qigong, tell me a little bit about what these practices entail, and do you need to do them over a certain length of time? And is it something that you can just kind of pick up easily to use in the classroom?
Yeah, so the basics of Tai Chi and Qigong would be I always use the comparative point because many people are used to yoga or familiar with yoga. So Qigong, which means energy, so Qi is
Mhm.
energy, and then Gong means work, so energy work, is roughly about the same age as yoga. So it's about
Mhm.
4,000 years old, very old art. Tai Chi, on the other hand, is about 700 years old. So the major differences in Tai Chi and Qigong is Qigong are usually, depending on the practice, there's many different kinds of Qigong. Um, they are the same movement repetitive multiple times with
Mm,
slow moving breath, with the mind on the movement. Um, the Tai Chi is a little different in that Tai Chi is fundamentally a martial art. Qigong is
mhm,
not. There are forms of Qigong that are martial, but in this day and age, most of them are medical Qigong or wellness-based Qigong.
mhm,
So I do those. I practice those and offer those. The Tai Chi is fundamentally a martial art and is fundamentally multiple movements in a single sequence. So I
mhm.
may move one move like wild horse parts its mane, and then go to brush knee, and then go to hold the ball, and then maybe go to whip. While in a Qigong, I might just do a simple hold the ball movement over and over. So in that way, Qigong is a little more simple and it's usually
Mhm.
stationary. Um,
Okay.
as for practice time, anywhere from 30 seconds to an hour,
Mhm.
depending on how much information and knowledge you have and how much time you actually have. I find in the morning, my own practice is anywhere between 20 and 45 minutes,
Okay.
depending on how much time I have, and that doesn't include other training that I do. Um, and so what I offer to teachers is like a 3 to 5 minute basic um, way to take care of themselves is I will teach them in the course. And then what they can do is they learn those movements and then they can offer them in the classroom, right, to their
Okay.
own kids, to their own students.
Okay.
And then it's passed on from there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I think there's sometimes people do mix the two up, and I'm glad you provided some
Yeah.
context as to the differences between the two. But like you said, those can be used in the classroom that you can learn the movements, and like you said, it can be very short intervals that you're using with kids. So um, if teachers want to incorporate this in their classroom, what would be a good maybe time of day to do it?
Yep.
What is a class that maybe you've done it with, in terms of kids when they're dysregulated, for
Yep.
example, or during what time of school day would that be?
Yeah, so in general, the morning is ideal
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So the ideal would be let's start them off the beginning of the year, and we're going to start off in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, at the same time, if you start them after a long break, let's say a November week-long break, and you start the movement practice that they've never done, that's good. Or after winter break is good too, because the kids are pretty much you're kind of starting on a blank slate. And back when you get back to school in January, they're in a different place.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the best times of the year to start. And then for the day, I always start my students out in the morning and then either after first recess or definitely after lunch. So those are
Mm-hmm.
the times when there's no structure at the school, which is good for kids. Kids need playtime, big advocate for that. At the same time, some kids take longer to transition from the outside energy to the inside energy. And this
Mm-hmm.
practice will do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, so for example, the kids line up. You get there, the kids line up, and then the bell rings, and then they walk in. You make eye contact, you slap them five, give them knuckles, depending on what grade you're in. You say hi, good morning, um, and then they come in, they put their stuff down, and you have them stand up and you could just say, hey, I was just at this cool teaching seminar and I learned like three movements. I just want to teach you guys one. It's really simple. And then show them like, I don't know, the wave or something, or show them, that I have a few that are just really basic, or a butterfly or crane, just basic. And they do it 3 times and have them sit down, and then you start the class and the class goes on for the rest of the day. They show up again the next day. You do the same thing in the morning, but maybe they do it in the repetition of five.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you'll really start to see like the groundingness happen in the children, the balancedness happen in the children. Or maybe you add one more posture, depending on what the
Mm-hmm.
class needs,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you slowly infuse it that way. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to teach you this whole program. Um, like you just got a new ELA program or a new humanities program, and you're going to hop right in. And that's not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is you kind of slowly trickle it in and you use it more. As a preventative practice than a reactionary. I mean,
Sure.
at the same time, if a class is chaotic or let's say an individual is having difficulty with regulating their emotions, you can have them outside and you can do, all right, we're just going to do like a lot of teachers do. We're going to do 3 deep breaths.
Mhm.
right? So very common because we know breath, changes the whole nervous system, right? But then when you add mind and then you add movement, it's that much more powerful.
Mhm. Mhm. So, what are some benefits that you see from teachers who have started using these practices, especially if they're incorporating it in a school or a classroom where there are a lot of kids who either have ADHD or, just kids who are very active, physically active, or
Mhm.
also if they teach a group of kids who have trauma backgrounds?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, there's boatloads of research. I'm thinking of Peter Wayne right now from Harvard
Hmm.
about the effects of Tai Chi and Qigong, not only in children, but in adults. Um, I mean, in general, you'll see a class, especially just an A, B. If you took a video of your class, which I've done, take a video of your class of how they come into the classroom in the first 10 minutes for a
Hmm.
week. And then you do a practice, 30 seconds. Ideally, it's about a minute and a half to start. And then you take the video of what happens for the next 10 minutes. It's night and day.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
night and day. There's more overall in the classroom. It's just more chill and more relaxed, but you'll see it in each child. Maybe you'll see them with both their feet on the ground, or
Hmm.
maybe you'll see them, they'll be sitting up a little bit more straight, or maybe
Hmm.
you'll see them think a little bit more before they just blurt out. You'll see those specific behaviors. And when the body is aligned like that, the mind follows,
Hmm.
right? And then so does the nervous system and all everything else. So on the individual level, it's the same as in the group level. I find there's more balance, more calmness, and with that comes more focus.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, really, it's something that's a no-brainer in terms
Yeah, yeah,
of,
it really is. Yeah, it really is. And I think a lot of my yoga listeners already know that.
Hmm.
I mean, you see it too. I have a lot of friends who are yoga teachers, and we have yoga at the school I'm currently working at, and you can just see it. Like you can
Hmm.
see the difference. In yoga, though, the kids sit down. In most of the
Hmm.
practice, the differences in the Tai Chi and the Qigong, I have them stand up.
Hmm.
So the kids don't have to get on the ground to get relaxed. There are programs out there that they're doing yoga sitting in a seat, which is super cool too. But in
Hmm.
the Tai Chi and the Qigong, it's really important to feel your whole body standing up.
Hmm.
And that's ideal. And again, it's night and day when you just, if you could take a video of it or you could take an audio just to see the lack of chaos that goes on. It's pretty cool.
Why do you think yoga is more popular in some schools? Is it because there's more people that are trained yoga practitioners, or attend yoga classes in general compared to Tai
Yeah.
Chi and Qigong?
Yeah. I think it became more popularized earlier.
Hmm.
I think the icon of the somebody sitting cross-legged, that icon became like the icon of wellness.
Hmm.
Like you look at that and you're like, oh, wellness. You don't see a Tai Chi person in like some type of
Uh-huh.
pose, right? So
Yeah.
that just spread like wildfire, wildfire. Um, I think that some perceive Tai Chi as more complex.
Okay.
So a lot of people that I hear is just like, I don't have the coordination, Rob. Or
Hmm.
Rob, I don't have the balance. Or I can't remember the set. And it's
Hmm.
like, well, welcome to my world. I can't remember. When I go to see my teacher, I can't remember these sets either. They're long, but that's part of the
Sure.
practice is that it builds it builds body memory, it builds body intelligence, body awareness, which then feeds into mind and emotion. So some say Tai Chi is more complex, but again, if you talk to your yoga friends, when you get into advanced yoga, it's not easy. I
Yeah.
mean, it is strenuous, difficult art. And at the same time, uh, it's sometimes people say it's difficult to relax. It's difficult to be calm in your
Hmm.
body, and Tai Chi asks for that. Tai Chi asks for a sense of calm and centeredness while you're moving.
Hmm.
And we're so programmed in the way that we move our bodies every day to slow down slow enough to say, okay, I'm going to move my hand this way.
Yeah.
That instead of saying I'm just going to do this, that, and then times that with both hands, your weight, your
Hmm.
feet, right? Your shoulders, where everything is aligned, that can be complex to put the whole symphony of the body together. And
Hmm.
it is. And during that learning time is where the mind body connection happens.
Hmm.
So, and that can be complex, but that's why I start with the qigong first, and then
Hmm.
the qigong that I teach is the movements are linked with the tai chi.
Okay.
So then when I start teaching a tai chi form, they're like, "Oh, it's this move.
Hmm.
Oh, it's this move." And then I slowly sequence them together, and then they have a practice which consists of stretches,
Okay.
stretches, qigong, and then tai chi.
Okay. Yeah, it does sound like something that's easy to learn once you're, in the practice itself. And
Yep.
like you said, it's not, you can do yoga sitting, like you said, some schools do that and they don't do a ton of advanced postures and all that. However, um, it does not have to be as complex when you're learning through the movements that are linked, right? And once a teacher starts learning those, I think the kids learn the movements, then it becomes like just a second knowledge, right? Kids, I'm sure you've had the experience that kids will start leading the sessions then.
And I let them,
Yeah,
because that's a sense of empowerment, right? So,
yeah,
so I teach in a PE class as well,
yeah,
because there's a large PE class, and not all the kids are ball kids.
yeah.
Not all the kids want to play basketball or flag football or whatever we're playing. And so I'll grab a small group of kids who are a little bit more internal,
Hmm.
or a little bit more not, let's say, not as confident with their bodies. Um, Maybe they lean more on the academics and they're a little bit more timid about large groups.
Hmm.
Cool. Well, then let's go. And so we take off and find a quiet little place. Um, and it's a smaller group. And slowly, these kids have learned a sense of empowerment and confidence in their bodies because I'm teaching this ancient form. It's not throwing a football or tackling people or hitting a ball. It's how to move their own body and how to present their own body to themselves in the world. And they become literally more embodied. Their
Hmm.
mind-body connection is there. And then with that comes obviously confidence, as well as if some groups I decide to teach a martial element to it, they become more confident, right, through the
Hmm.
practice. And actually, just last week that happened. One of the girls who is notoriously won't say a word, maybe 3 words during class. This little, can I show him how to do it? Because there's a new boy who came in. Can I
Hmm.
show him? Yeah. Why don't you stand
Yeah.
up here and do that? And it was like, whoa, she would never do that before. But she found that once she learned, the sequence of 3 movements, and she'd been doing it for weeks with me,
Hmm.
and then a new student came in, she was able to offer that. And it was like, well, that was really cool, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I know it's great to do something that gives kids the empowerment and also helps regulate them at the same time. And I
That's it.
think definitely as we're talking about this, something that I think all educators should look into starting in terms of just advice for educators who want to start doing this in their classrooms. Is it something that they would have to do a school-wide program for? Is it something that they really should get approval from their principal for, or is it something they could just kind of start with, like you said, in small doses?
Yeah, I would say you can just go ahead and start in small doses.
Hmm.
I've had both. So some schools want to order the whole program and train their teachers, which is
Yeah,
awesome. And I'd like to have that happen. And the reason why is so they're properly trained and they know how to do the movements and they're not going to hurt their bodies. And it's more
sure.
than just an hour introduction because I
Yeah.
really dive deep into the 3 hour course around movement, mechanics, moving energy, as well as the research around it.
Hmm.
But to start with, I mean, if you can go to, well, you can go to my Instagram, move to focus, and there should be a few that just show basic movements, and I kind of walk you through them, and just try it out and see what it's like. But if you're timid, obviously just contact me, and I can train you, and you can just bring it in. Some teachers get so stoked on it that they tell other teachers they started, and then they bring it to their head or to their principal or whatever, and then I'm contacted that way, and then I'll get a group of teachers on a weekend, or something like that via Zoom and
Mhm.
train from there.
Okay. Okay. So like you said, it's something to try, to see if that works for your class, which I'm sure it will if you're intentional about it. But yeah, like you said, getting more people trained as a group will also help with the school-wide, like I wouldn't say necessarily buy-in, but also just doing that preventative measure before, student behaviors become difficult. And like
Yes.
like you said, this is coming out in January. This does not necessarily have to be something you do at the beginning of the school year. This can be done after a break. It can be done mid-year. Does not have to be, started off at the beginning. So I think anybody can look into doing these practices and just doing them for their own mental health in the morning, like you
Yeah.
said, before work.
Yep.
So we've done a lot of talking about just the benefits of Tai Chi and Qigong and how you started doing these practices and how you've used them as an educator. Out of everything we've talked about, what's one thing you'd like listeners to remember?
I would say that the tools for well-being are right in front of you.
Yeah.
They're really right in front of you. Um, it's all right there, and it's been done for thousands of years. And really, if you take a moment and slow down,
Yeah.
breathe, and move, all in one sequence, everything else in nature is doing that around you. You're
Mhm.
already there. It's the classic, I'm sure most everyone listening, you're looking for something, you're looking for something, you're seeking, and you find out it's been there the whole time.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's what I would leave the listener with, and also, of course, how to contact me. So you can go to www.movetofocus.com. You can go to my Instagram. I also have a free stress test if teachers are feeling stressed out. Um, it's called teacherstress.coach. If you went to that website, there's a free stress test on there. And then after that, it'll kind of evaluate your level of stress. And if you're quote unquote, your stress is high, it'll move you towards a little mini course that I created for people to watch. It kind of there's 3 videos total, and I think there's about 5 to 7 movements on the videos that you can learn. And then we can dig deeper if you contact me.
Okay, great. I'll make sure I put all those links in the show notes so people can, like you said, maybe just start off with those videos on your
Yeah.
Instagram, and then look into that course. So this is coming out after that free event in December. Do you think you will have that available on your YouTube? Um,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I will. I'll probably offer something in April and definitely during the summertime as
Mhm.
well, to get teachers prepped up for the next school year for sure.
Great, great. Well, it was a pleasure talking with you today, learning about just the benefits of this for both teacher and student mental health. And, I hope some of the listeners will take me up on just at least starting off with this teacher stress test, like you mentioned, and then
Yeah.
looking at some of your free resources. Well, thank you so much for being my guest on the Out of the Trenches podcast today.
Thanks for having me.